بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. اللهم كل وليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتع فيها طويلا. Last week we brought a very important topic when we said that if we accept that there is a Lord, there is a God, there is a Creator, we should accept as well that He's wise. So why He created us? What was the reason behind that? Allah is wise. So then we reached that probably He wants us to do something. And what are those things that Allah wants us to do them? We don't know. We cannot get connected to Allah. That's why we cannot get connected to Allah? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mutakabbir. He won't talk to each individual. It's not appropriate. It's not appropriate for a king to address every single person, every single citizen. Okay? He might have general addressing, but not addressing every single person. Talk to every single person. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen for Himself prophets who can send and pass His message to us. And we talked about miracles and the difference between a miracle and what? Miracle and what? Magic. What we said? We said miracle is something that nobody can do but and except those who are connected to God. Because miracles can prove the prophethood of a person. So if somebody can make or can do a miracle and he's a liar, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be put a space for people to do what? To breach the law. To claim that they are prophets while they are not. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to close that door. How? By providing His prophets, genuine prophets, with miracles. And miracles are things that no one ever would be able to do unless if he is connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Unless if he is a trustworthy person. And what he's claiming is right and genuine. Unless if he's a prophet of Allah, a messenger of Allah, an apostle of Allah. Or a successor of messengers, apostles, and what? Ambassadors, Safir. Okay. Today, we want to talk about another important topic. And what is that important topic? That those prophets should be infallible. Why? And this is very important because we as Shia are the only people who believe in the infallibilities of all prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So why? While other sects, not all of them, even Sunni, not all of religion, even other religions, don't believe in infallibilities of prophets. As a matter of fact, Sunnis believe, too many of them, that a prophet is infallible only in passing the message. Otherwise, he would be considered as a liar. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want him to be a liar. That's why he is infallible only in passing the message to us. So passing the Quran, passing the message of God. Not in every action he takes, in every sayings he says. No. While we as Shia believe that prophets, apostles, and their successors, they must be infallible. Why? Why we say that? Before we go to verses and narrations, we can bring rational evidence to prove that. How? What we said last week, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mutakabbir. He won't put He won't talk to us directly. Why? Because he's mutakabbir. It's inappropriate for him. So, if somebody, according to what we said, if somebody says that prophets of Allah might commit sins, but not in the field of passing the message, that would be okay. This equation is wrong. Why? Because Allah is mutakabbir and He won't talk to someone who commits sins because it's inappropriate. You see? If a king wants to sit with a garbage collector, with all due respect to everyone, should he wear like him and sit with him, or should he give him a suit that he can wear and sit with him? Which one is more appropriate? Give him a suit, yes. Okay, let the king be humble guy and wear like the garbage collector and sit with him. No, let him be generous and give him a suit and sit with him. And Allah is not humble. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to talk someone, put someone between himself and us. He what? He would consider somebody who is infallible or who is good person, and he make him infallible, gives him a knowledge, make him infallible, and then put him between himself and us as his creations. Thus, what we said last week can lead us to a very important conclusion, that all prophets and messengers and apostles and their successors must be infallible. Otherwise, it would be inappropriate for Allah to say that they represent me. They are the representative of Allah, correct? So somebody who commits sins represents. Just imagine that. Is it appropriate for somebody who commits or might commit sins to represent Allah, who is pure, who is infallible, who won't make any mistake? Of course not. Is it appropriate for a garbage collector to represent a doctor, a professor? No. Is it appropriate for a cleaner to represent, let's say, I don't know, a pilot? No. It's a different field, with all due respect to everyone. Different field. So that's why we say that all prophets of Allah are infallible. Not because of them only, but because of Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah is mutakabbir. Allah is not humble. He won't talk directly or reveal to somebody who is unclean, who is sinful person. This is called infallibility. And that's why we believe in the infallibility of Allah, while other sects don't believe in that such thing. And they can't believe in that. You know why? Because the second Khalifa said to the Prophet, "Inna rajula la yahjur." The man is hallucinating, correct? When he said that the Prophet is hallucinating. So how can they come and say that the Prophet was infallible in all of his action and all of his saying? They cannot say something like that, because that would contradict their doctrine. And their doctrine is what? Based on what? On accusing the Prophet with hallucinations. That's why too many of Sunnis believe that the Prophet is only infallible in passing the message to us, nothing more and nothing less. While Allah falsifies such theories in Quran when He says, وَمَا يَنطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ, that our Prophet won't talk out of what? Desire. Whatever he says is the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When the Prophet did not name Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam and said that I will wait for Allah to name him, naming his grandson. So in every other actions and stance, he would wait for Allah's revelation. Allah says in Quran. In Quran you can find that. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal-Duha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal-Duha. Wal-Layli idha saja. Ma wadda'aka rabbuka wa ma ala. That your Lord did not abandon you. Ma wadda'aka rabbuka wa ma ala. So the Prophet was able to come and talk from himself. He used to be asked questions, used to receive by the Prophet. But the Prophet used to stop from answering those questions. Why? Because he was waiting for the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, answer them now. He's infallible. You got me? And when you go to other religions, they accuse prophets of Allah with really ridiculous accusations that I don't want to mention now. So Shia are the most rational faith, or they have the most rational faith, and Shi'ism is the most rational faith. Shi'ism is really based on rationality, a logic. And if we say that we believe prophets are infallible, we mean it. Because prophets, in one hand, are related to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They represent Allah. In another hand, they should be taken as what? As role model in our society. Just imagine that prophets of Allah commit sins. How can they be a role model for us? You know? If you don't pray, can you preach for praying? If you lie, can you tell people stop lying? If you steal, can you legislate a law to ban people from what? Stealing. If you don't respect traffic's laws, you cannot tell me to respect it. So because they are role models, they must be infallible. So in one hand, the relation between Allah and His prophets representative. And Allah is mutakabbir, He's not humble. He won't choose somebody who might commit sins because they have to represent Allah. In another hand, messages of Allah are our role models. And thus they have to be infallible. Otherwise, would get confused. Should we lie or not? Based on what? Based on the lying of the Prophet. Well, lie is bad. If it's that bad, why the Prophet lied? Would say that. If you go to a doctor and tells you don't smoke, for instance, and then after that you see he's smoking, you're not going to believe him. You're not going to accept his prescriptions because he's prescribing you something that he doesn't believe in. Otherwise, he would act in accordance to his knowledge. So if he doesn't pray, why should I? If he lies, why should I avoid lying? And etc. Okay, what is infallibility? What is it? Is it that they are forced to do good? Then what's so important about that? If they are forced to do good, to be good. Infallibility is not about being forced to do good and to avoid bad. No. Infallibility is about that having an enlightened heart with the knowledge and light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the guidance of Allah, in a way that you see bad actions as bad and good actions as good, and that's why intentionally and deliberately you go after good and avoid bad. So it's not about being forced. It's about prophets were doing what they were doing because they believed in it. So somehow infallibility related to Allah because Allah is enlightening their hearts. Somebody came to Imam alayhi salam and told him, how you don't commit any sins. Imam told him, do you like to eat garbage? He said, no. He said, why? Said, because it's unclean, disgusting. Khaba'ith. Imam said, ahsant, beautiful. We see all sins and disobedience of Allah as eating garbage. We see the bad side of that. Even if it has a, nice photos. It's a cake, but it's poison cake. Would you eat a poison cake? No. Would you touch the teeth of a crocodile even if it's very white? Well, it's white, Would you touch the skin of a lion? The hair of a lion is very beautiful, male lion. Would you touch him with no protection? It's dangerous, man. At all. So if you know, you will avoid. Why? Because you have knowledge. You know it's bad. So prophets of Allah and Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam know that this wrongdoing, this haram, is so bad. They can see, their vision can penetrate that haram and understand why it's so bad, why it's haram, and when it's haram, it's so bad. They intentionally avoid that. Because I've heard some people saying, that's what's so important about prophets of Allah. Well, when Allah made them infallible, what is so important about that? That Allah gave them the knowledge, enlightened their hearts with His guidance. Not that He's forcing them to do good and avoid bad. It's not forcing them, it's guiding them. It's a big difference, huge, tremendously huge difference between guiding to the right path in a way that you can understand what is bad and what is good, and then you do in accordance to what is required, and to be forced to do good and avoid bad. If you are forced, I'm not going to admire you because you're forced. Okay, why you are not, let's say, do you go to a blind person and tell him, okay, I'd like to admire you for not looking at na mahram? He's blind. Do you go to a deaf person and tell him, okay, I really like to admire you? You write to him, I really like to admire you for not listening to music. He cannot listen to music. This poor guy. But you go to someone who has vision and eyes, and you see that he closes his eyes on na mahram, you say, ahsant. And someone who has ears and no pressure on him to avoid listening to music and songs, and he avoids that intentionally, okay? And you tell him ahsant. Why? Because he can, but he avoids. This is exactly should apply on Ahlul Bayt and prophets. They can, but they don't. And Imam Ali said that. He said, لو شئت لاهتديت إلى مصفى هذا العسل. If I want, I can go to the best honey I know how to find it. The softest clothes, the most delicious food, but I don't want to follow my desire. I can, I know how, but I don't want. I know how to make money more, but I don't want. I want to be abd and slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and follow the guidance and footsteps of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Any questions? Clear? Yeah? Sisters? صلى الله على محمد وآله